to Power Charting. I am your host, Bruce Frazier. We are going to have some fun today. We are conducting a swing trading mini workshop. And so let's start by looking at NVIDIA. NVIDIA, first of all, this is our trend model. And this is the way I like to start all analysis on all stocks. And here we see that and I want to trade persistent uptrends. And the objective of portfolio managers, institutions, is that they need two characteristics in the stocks they own in their portfolios. They want absolute returns, meaning that stocks go up week to week, quarter to quarter, year to year, and they want to own stocks that are outperforming their peer group or their benchmarks. In this case, many of them use the S&P 500. That is how their clients evaluate them. So they're always looking to outperform the S&P and to have absolute upward performance. 2022 was a tough year for that. We're still in a tough environment because there is such a narrow list of stocks that are persistently outperforming the market, of which semiconductors is one of those. NVIDIA is among the best of the best at this time. So let me just show you here the trend model. You can see that what I am looking for, and again, every stock I look at, I start with this view, and stock charts makes it very easy for me to get right in, look at this view first, and I'm looking for the condition of a rising 39-week moving average, which is a green dotted line. I want to see price above the rising 39 being in a confirmed uptrend. This is on price, and this is weekly bar charts. And below, we're looking at the relative strength. In this case, we're looking at NVIDIA to the S&P. And back in 2019, we see that a base formed, an accumulation, built a cause, and started an uptrend. And when you have price and relative strength, both in good uptrends, you get persistency. That's where trends happen. These are the very best candidates for swing trading purposes. And so look here, look at this beautiful pause that was about 7-8 months in the making in NVIDIA, which then consolidated, built a cause, and came out for an important advance. Also, the relative strength paused at that time, both pulled back to their rising 39s and found support there, and then turned up and continued their upward trajectory. Very, very important. I love to look at rate of change, 26-week. Why do I look at 26-week? I look at everything in quarters of a year because that's what the institutions are thinking in terms of. Think about rate of change on price. If the rate of change is above the zero line, which is this dotted line here, and is persistently above the zero line, that shows that this instrument is performing to a greater or lesser extent on a positive basis, creating positive return in portfolios on a 6-month basis. So you could look at it 13 weeks, quarterly, or you could look at yearly, however you want to look at it. But these are the criteria that institutional portfolio managers are thinking in terms of. So we should chart in terms of what they're thinking because they are the tail that wags the dog of the stock market. So here we see that once you get into a positive trend, the 26-week rate of change will stay above zero, sometimes returning back to zero, creating a buying opportunity. This is a very good visual for me to say, oh, it's pulled back to the zero line. This could be a great place to initiate or add to positions or to swing trade. And here you see this is also the case with relative strength. And so in both those cases, the rate of change line is a great visual for me. Now, look at what we have at this time. This is a really dramatic uptrend, and note how once this accumulation structure was complete, it jumped up and out, turned up the 39, and started this dynamic upward trend. Also the case with relative strength, did the same thing. So in both cases, we have an in-gear relationship. We want both conditions in gear up. And if you're a short seller, some of you are, you want to have in gear down for your short selling candidates. So keep that in mind as we go here. Now, I'm showing you NVIDIA as a case study, but we will look at others also. So here is the uptrend in NVIDIA since 2022, 2023, a persistent dynamic advance with two reaccumulation periods in here, excuse me, which represent swing trading opportunities. Note that this has an upward bias to it, but builds a count, builds a cause, and goes up and almost perfectly fulfills this objective, then goes into another pause. This count goes across here 51 points and counts up to 312 to 333. But here we are, look at this, up at 384 today. Now, does this mean that this methodology didn't work? Well, it gave us a beautiful entry strategy, more on that in a minute. But also, there's other attributes that we need to look at to help us to understand how much potential is in a stock. And this is what I would call campaign counts, which are the larger 3-box method counting. And we've talked about that many times in the past, but let's get into that here a little bit more. But just to show you, this is how you swing trade. You have these pauses, advances, and we trade those. Okay, so now here is a 3-box method, traditional scaling using daily data, NVIDIA again. And you can see this is just 2022 in here. And this is the July low. Here's the September, October low. Here's the December, January low. This looks like a potential accumulation structure. You could even put in here selling climax, and then an automatic rally, a secondary test, and then across here we have resistance and support forming across these two zones, and a count forming, a cause building that we can count with point and figure. Now let's just do that very thing, and we are going to start by looking at our notes, and always check for larger structures, because we want large structures to work with to show that we have a very firm foundation of potential underneath the stock that we want to swing trade in. The biggest bases lead to the best uptrends in my experience. Large persistent trends will come out of big bases because they've had much time for the composite operator institutional types to build their essential positions. And these are the best swing trade candidates. So we just looked at this uptrend here a minute ago, but let's look at the accumulation structure. This only took 6 months to form, which is this is a large structure for such a short period of time. And the low here is around 110, and the count line is at around 140. So here is the count line and the low in this structure. Well, how far up does it count? So this is 47 columns, and it's two box or 2-point scaling, 3-box reversal method. So we count 47, we multiply by 2, that's the scaling, and then by 3, and that gives us 282 points of upside potential. And that counts upwards to 392 to 424. Wow, that seemed like a bridge too far at the time that the count was forming. But look where we are now. This is incredible. We're at 384 at this time. And note over here, this area right along this zone is a swing trading zone. This is a swing trading zone. And let's just count that. with the 3-box method, we counted it with 1 box and we got up to 333. It's always a good idea to count 3 box. And if you have a structure that's countable, look what we get, 368 to 384. Now, is this the end of the move for NVIDIA? Well, I would argue that there's potentially a much bigger count. I'm not going to count this today, but we have 47 columns of count to here, and then we have potential for count over to here. So I would suggest that we're probably, with this gigantic jump, going to go into some kind of a range-bound condition in NVIDIA going forward. And this range-bound condition will build potentially new count that will help to give us some objectives about this bigger base and whether or not a bigger base is available to us. It may just distribute from somewhere up here at these higher objectives that we're very near now. Too early to tell. But at this time, we can see that the count potential that we have is very close to being fulfilled between the 392 objective and this 384, that the reaccumulation counts and the let's see, okay, so the reaccumulation count is approximately equal to the accumulation count underneath. These would be considered confirming counts, pretty darn close, just 8 points apart. And so we asked the question, is the uptrend over? We sort of addressed that here a minute ago, but very compelling situation where we have these two so close. So now we would look for the elements of a pause, and that goes into the some of the characteristics of Wyckoff, how we would identify that. Subject for another day. Okay, so now let's look at the semiconductor ETF. I'm going to have to go a little faster here. I'm running out of time. But here is the semiconductors as a group using the SMH, and or you could use the semiconductor group as formed in a very, very good group. Index is in stockcharts.com. SMH is certainly one of my favorites to look at, and we're just looking at the trend model. So you see the trend model, 2020, beautiful uptrend, persistent. This is why we love them, because they give us these great swing trading counts. And if you're a position trader, you would just buy that uptrend, wait for the pullbacks, and then just add to your existing positions all the way up into the final high and the turn down in price and relative strength. Okay, so for this, what we want to do is we see here that we have some leadership qualities in semiconductors at this time. The 39 is rising. It's above its 39. It's jumping. It's not too far from its 2021 highs. So note this, the relative strength here, excuse my very poor artistic skills, is at a new high. Relative strength is at a new high. Tell me that institutions aren't really happy with having semiconductors, the right semiconductors in their portfolios, and this is helping to create persistency of uptrend, because these institutions are continuing to give love to this group in the form of additional funds. And so this is a very compelling situation for not only for institutions, but also for swing trading. Let's look at the swing trading count structure that we have. This is looking at one box method, and we see two accumulation type reaccumulation structures here, up, sideways. When we look at swing trading, we are looking for consolidations which occur in a range that can have an upward bias. We just looked at that in NVIDIA. And then one last test and a jump up and out. We will typically trade, and I'll show you different ways that we can initiate trades in the swing trades in these structures. But here buying the breakout of this by one box is one way to do it, 116, and then you have a run up to 130. And here you have another confirming, or not a confirming count, but another base on base. And this goes all the way to 160 to 168. It's now up and out of this area. Both of these are breakout zones. And 130, 132 counts 160, 168. More fuel is still in the tank for higher prices in the semiconductor group. And there may be follow through in the big leadership, which is NVIDIA. And so let me keep going here so that I don't run out of time in our mini workshop. Do join us for our our larger swing trading workshop. These are some of the topics that we're going to cover that weekend at the Unconference, 13th and 14th of July. Hope to see you there, but we will be really digging in deep to this whole methodology. And so I'm going to take a quick break here so that I can get over to another screen to show you how we can use stockcharts.com to drill into leadership. I am back, my Wyckoff friends, and let me talk a minute about a way that we can kind of determine the breadth of the market, how much participation there is. We are looking at the sectors, and let me see if I can find a way to even make that bigger. Okay. So these are the sectors in a candle glance format. I always show candle glance with relative strength. You can see right away where the leadership is. Discretionary has been pretty good. The S&P has been strong mainly because of the cap-weighted nature of the mega cap FANG type names and how well they performed, NVIDIA being really one of them. And you can see communications has just been really stellar. Technology, which includes semiconductors, has been really great, good leadership there. But now, once we get past these groups, look at what we have. Industrials, relative strength downtrend has been just in a large trading range. Materials going back and retesting its March lows. Energy attempting to retest its March lows. I kind of like some of the energy characteristics. Maybe we can look at that in the future. But here you can see, look at staples, beautiful swing trading opportunity here into the March lows, beautiful rally. This gave some nice counts, some great stocks in there, but now lately weakness. Healthcare, I think healthcare is being affected by the debt ceiling issues because healthcare is so dependent on the federal government's spending, Medicare, that kind of thing. But I'm watching this closely for the potential for a reversal, and there are some really nice themes. All of these sectors have themes that are swing trading opportunities at this time. So let me, sorry. And then if we go over here to utilities, weak, financials, maybe building a base, but weak, and real estate weak. So look at the leadership. I mean, in a strong bull market, you'll have lots of leadership, lots of groups, lots of sectors with leadership. And that just doesn't appear to be the case at this time. Okay, so, and thus the reason why we're looking at areas like technology. Now, I want to show you how I drill in and what a beautiful tool stockcharts.com is for drilling into these stocks. My standard chart that I look at initially, it's my default chart in the sharp charts sector, is to look at this weekly with the relative strength. Now, if I really like the stock and I want to drill in and look at the point figure characteristics, then what I will do is I will go in and I set this point figure up to a one box method. And so this is one box point figure traditional scaling, so that I can drill right in and look at that from that perspective, easily get to 3 box for campaign purposes. But now let's take, and so I just want to show you how I do this. But let's just talk about using the scanning engine for the most basic, very powerful uses. And that is here you can see that in this case, I'm just put up the industry group semiconductors, and I just have 2 criteria. One is I want a high level of liquidity, a large number of shares that have been issued for the company, showing that it's relatively large. And this isn't even that high of a threshold. You can adjust this accordingly. I have 20 million shares here. And then close, I want a stock price of $10 or more. I don't want to trade low price stocks because we're looking for leadership. Low price stocks are typically not leadership. Now, all you have to do to be able to change the group is to go down here, sectors and industries, and you have the complete list of sectors and industry groups that you can look at. And that's very powerful. And then you just click on the one that interests you and then add it in here, and then remove semiconductors and put this other one in. So I just save this and I'll just plop in the industry group or the sector that I want to evaluate. And then that gives me a list. And and also I rank by scooter. Scooter gives me a way to be able to look at the momentum in some kind of a logical order, strongest momentum to weakest in the stocks I'm looking at. Now, in the case here, if we just look at semiconductors by themselves without those limiting criteria, such as numbers of shares issued and the minimum stock price size, we get 94 names. So that should be all the stocks in the semiconductor group. Now, I don't want to look at 94 names. I want to look at the largest stocks. But one way you can do that is you could go over here and just click on the this U, which gives you capitalization, roughly just generally large cap, mid cap, small cap. And you can see some of these are not actually scored for this, but we have large cap ordered by scooter. So NVIDIA is the #1 large cap momentum name, as we would expect, and then down the list in order of their scooter rank. And so the lowest scooter rank here for large caps is Wolfspeed, which has a scooter of, it appears it's 1.4. Qualcomm is 11. So there you have it. You have rankings by momentum of these stocks. Now, what I want to do, and look at all the small cap. Well, I don't, you may want to look at all the small cap. Not necessarily the case here. So, but then you save your list. But what I do is I go in and I scan for these characteristics that show me the largest stocks. Now, I've come up with 28 names that are really the large cap stocks. Does that make them leaders? Not necessarily, but we can see here 2 things. We have the market cap across this column here, which we can sort on by clicking on the top, but also we have the scooter rank, which we ranked by. Now we can click on the U to give us the rankings by large, mid, and small cap. And now we see that we have almost all large caps and 2 mid caps. So this is very cool. We have about 28 names that we can look at and study them. And then what we do is we click on this and it gives us our default chart. And you've seen this before, which is right here. What have I done here? Oh, it's right here. So here is NVIDIA. We see our trend chart, a little more data than we saw before. But again, we have our trend analysis that we can look at very quickly and then go straight into the point figure. And now we have the point figure for swing trading purposes. And what I do is I go in and I'll click on a stock. And in this case, let me just show you one other thing that's very cool, is that if you do the NVIDIA or any stock really, and you apply this style to all, every 28 of the stocks that you've got in this group and you've saved this group are now going to be in the format of a one box reversal point and figure chart, which now becomes very effective for looking at evaluating all the stocks. And so here you see, nope, not what I want. Okay, so here we go to the list, and then we say view all, and now we can view all of the stocks in the list based on their point figure method, and we can evaluate them for swing trading purposes. And so if we look at, say, AVGO, this is a very interesting swing trading candidate. We see the structure. This is a trading range structure. Let me draw in here. And you see that there's a somewhat of a hinge type structure forming. It breaks this out. We then count this, and we get a count here of 26 columns. 5-point scaling gives us a 130 potential for a swing trading purpose, gives us a count 735 to 750. Look, we're one box from getting to the 735 minimum count potential. That is how you identify a swing trade.